What if the US couldn't pay its bills tomorrow and defaulted on its debt? Year in and year out, we hear about it. We need to raise the debt ceiling. And if we don't raise the debt ceiling, we're going to default on our debt. And with Trump's most recent One Big Beautiful Bill, it addressed exactly that, raising the debt ceiling again so that the US doesn't default. And mind you, it wasn't just voted on by Donald Trump, it was voted on by all of these people as well. So we've avoided defaulting on our debt once again, but what if we weren't able to avoid it and we went into default? Well, we're going to talk about that right now, but before we do, my name is Rick. I hope you turn daily news into daily profits. If that's something you're interested in, make sure you like and follow this page. The first major impact we would see in America is a disruption in payments for social service programs like Medicaid, Social Security, SNAP, unemployment, things like that. People that need government assistance in order to survive, those payments would cease pretty much immediately, and these people would be left helpless. Also, you could forget about air travel because who would pay TSA and who would pay the FAA? Without payment, they're not going to work, meaning that travel pretty much stops immediately too. And hopefully you don't need the mail service for any sort of reason because who do you think pays the USPS? The government does. That funding would also dry up and you would no longer be getting mail. And I wish I could say that was the worst, but we're just scratching the surface. The next thing that would happen is unemployment would surge. The current rate of unemployment is 4.2%. It would at least double to 8% and could go as high as 12% across the country. So now you have even more people dependent on unemployment benefits that almost certainly wouldn't have any sort of assistance. And since we're talking about loss of jobs, the next domino to fall would be the drastic downturn in GDP. It's calculated that if the United States defaulted on its debt, we could lose as much as 10% GDP pretty much overnight. And since the United States would be so desperate for an influx of cash, interest rates would absolutely skyrocket, meaning that any more debts that the United States took on would be very high interest debt that would also trickle down to the consumer. So trust me, the 4 to 6% interest that we're paying right now isn't that bad in contrast to what it could be. And since we're on the topic of funding, what's going to happen to all of these states that are dependent on federal funding in order to survive? Well, that federal funding dries up and the states are going to be left to fend for themselves. And then, of course, there's the stock market collapse where hopefully you don't have any money in retirement put in the stock market because, well, investors just lost their confidence in pretty much everything in the United States. So they're quickly pulling out money, crashing the stock market. And that's only 4 or 5 things that I gave you in this video. Trust me, there's a heck of a lot more that would happen if the US ever defaulted. But I only have 3 minutes. So we may be upset that the debt ceiling was raised because of the Big Beautiful Bill, but it was necessary. So what exactly would happen if the United States defaulted on its debt? Well, hopefully, we'll never have to find out.